The discovery of metal artifacts in America that appear to be older than the Egyptian pyramids opens up a fascinating window into human history, one that challenges many of the long-held assumptions about the timeline of metallurgy and civilization. For centuries, it has been commonly believed that the earliest complex societies capable of working with metals existed in places like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. The pyramids, dating back to around 2600 BCE, have often been considered a benchmark of ancient human achievement, not only for their architectural grandeur but also for the sophisticated knowledge of tools, mathematics, and organization that they imply. To imagine that in America, thousands of miles away from these civilizations, people may have been creating and working with metal objects even before the pyramids were built is both astonishing and humbling. It forces us to rethink what we know about the spread of technology, the intelligence of ancient peoples, and the interconnectedness of early civilizations. When such artifacts are uncovered, the first question that arises is about their authenticity and their age. Determining the true age of a metal object is not always straightforward, since unlike organic materials, metal does not lend itself easily to carbon dating. Instead, researchers often rely on contextual evidence such as the soil layers in which an artifact is found, nearby organic remains that can be dated, or the stylistic features of the object compared with other known pieces. If experts have concluded that these artifacts truly predate the pyramids, then the implications are profound. It suggests that metallurgy, the skill of extracting and shaping metal, was not limited to the old world centers of civilization, but may have developed independently in the New World at a surprisingly early time. Such a finding challenges the Eurocentric and Afrocentric narratives that place the origins of advanced technology solely in the Eastern Hemisphere. The very existence of ancient American metal artifacts also raises intriguing questions about the lives of the people who made them. Working with metal requires more than just an accidental discovery of a shiny stone. It requires sustained observation, experimentation, and a certain degree of scientific curiosity. The process of smelting metal from ore involves high temperatures, controlled use of fire, and the development of specialized tools. This level of technological sophistication indicates that the people who created these objects were not primitive by any means, but were skilled innovators capable of harnessing natural resources in ways that would benefit their societies. Whether the metals were used for tools, weapons, ornaments, or ritual objects, they would have carried great social and cultural significance. Just as in Egypt or Mesopotamia, the mastery of metal in ancient America would have represented not only practical knowledge, but also status and power. Another important aspect to consider is the possibility of cultural connections. Could it be that these ancient American peoples had some kind of contact with old world civilizations? Mainstream historians tend to argue that transoceanic contact before Columbus is unlikely, but discoveries like this push us to remain open-minded. Even if no direct contact occurred, the parallel development of metallurgy across continents speaks to the universal human drive to experiment with the environment and find ways to improve survival and express creativity. The fact that societies so far apart developed similar technologies independently is in itself a remarkable testament to the ingenuity of humankind. It suggests that the urge to create, to transform natural materials into something purposeful and lasting, is deeply ingrained in our species. The age of these artifacts also forces us to reconsider the narrative of technological progression. We often imagine history as a straight line, with progress moving steadily from primitive stone tools to advanced metal technologies, then to industrialization and modern science. But reality is far more complex. Civilizations rise and fall, knowledge is gained and sometimes lost, and different societies innovate at different times. The evidence of ancient metallurgy in America before the pyramids is a reminder that progress is not always centralized or linear. It can happen simultaneously in multiple places, sometimes earlier than we expect, and sometimes in ways that challenge our comfortable timelines. Furthermore, the symbolic meaning of such discoveries cannot be overstated. In many indigenous American cultures, metal was not just a material for practical use, it often held spiritual or ritual significance. Gold, copper, and other metals were valued for their beauty, their connection to the sun or the earth, and their role in ceremonies. The artifacts unearthed may have been more than just functional objects. They could have been sacred items representing beliefs, power, and cultural identity. When we consider that these objects predate one of the most iconic monuments in human history, the pyramids, it emphasizes the depth and richness of American civilizations long before European contact or even global awareness of their existence. The broader implications also extend to how we view history as a global phenomenon rather than a series of isolated regional stories. The narrative of ancient human achievement has often been dominated by the most visible monuments, the pyramids, the ziggurats, the Great Wall, and so forth. But discoveries like these remind us that history is not just written in stone, it is also written in metal, in pottery, in art, and in the remnants of daily life that often go overlooked. Each new find adds another layer to the complex mosaic of human civilization, making the story richer and more inclusive. Recognizing that advanced technologies existed in America as early as, or earlier than, the pyramids helps restore a sense of balance to the global historical narrative. There is also an emotional power in these discoveries. To hold an object that predates the pyramids is to connect directly with a world so distant in time that it is almost unimaginable. These artifacts are silent witnesses to human creativity, resilience, and vision thousands of years ago. They remind us that our ancestors, no matter where they lived, were not so different from us. They too sought to shape their environment, to leave a legacy, and to express themselves in lasting ways. The metal artifacts of ancient America are a testament to this shared human story. In conclusion, the finding of metal artifacts in America older than the pyramids is far more than just an archaeological curiosity. It challenges the established timelines of metallurgy, it highlights the sophistication of ancient American cultures, and it compels us to broaden our perspective on human history. These artifacts stand as proof that the story of civilization is not confined to one continent or one culture, but is a vast and interconnected tapestry of innovation, discovery, and creativity. They remind us to approach history with humility and wonder, for there is still so much left to uncover, and every new find has the potential to reshape what we think we know about our shared past. The historical significance of discovering metal artifacts in America that are older than the pyramids goes beyond the mere fact of their existence. It speaks directly to how we understand the development of human civilization, the origins of technology, and the cultural identity of ancient societies. For centuries, mainstream history has emphasized the accomplishments of civilizations like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece as the cornerstones of human advancement. These regions have often been presented as the places where innovation first took root, where metallurgy, writing, agriculture, and monumental architecture set the stage for what we call civilization. Yet the discovery of ancient American metal artifacts pushes us to widen our perspective. It suggests that advanced skills and cultural complexity were not confined to one region of the world, but were emerging simultaneously in many places, including the Americas, long before most people imagine. One of the most striking aspects of these artifacts is what they reveal about ancient American societies. The ability to work with metal is not a trivial achievement. It requires specialized knowledge, experimentation, and a cultural context in which such skills are valued and passed down. This means that the societies producing these objects were not static, primitive communities, but dynamic cultures capable of observation, adaptation, and creativity. Their ability to extract, shape, and use metals demonstrates a level of intellectual and practical sophistication that must be recognized as part of the global human story. In many ways, this discovery forces us to challenge the old stereotypes that depicted indigenous peoples of the Americas as technologically inferior to their counterparts in the Old World. Instead, it highlights their role as innovators and contributors to human progress. The cultural meaning of these artifacts is equally significant. Metal objects in ancient times were rarely just tools. They were often symbols of power, prestige, and spirituality. In numerous American civilizations, metals such as copper and gold were associated with the sun, the earth, or the divine. They were used in ceremonies, buried with the dead, or displayed as markers of status within a community. The discovery of very early metal artifacts in America suggests that even before the pyramids were constructed in Egypt, American societies were already creating material objects that carried layers of symbolic meaning. This shows us that the human impulse to assign deeper cultural and spiritual value to objects is not limited to one part of the world but is universal, reflecting a shared trait of human civilization across continents. On a larger scale, the significance of these discoveries lies in their ability to reshape the narrative of history. The story of human development has too often been told as if it were a single path leading from the Middle East outward, with other regions of the world only joining the story later when they were discovered or influenced by outsiders. The presence of advanced metallurgy in ancient America disrupts this model. It shows that the Americas were not passive or peripheral in the grand timeline of civilization, but were centers of creativity and knowledge in their own right. This rebalancing of history is important not only for scholars but also for the descendants of those ancient peoples, who deserve to see their ancestors recognized as innovators rather than as background characters in someone else's story. Another dimension of the historical significance is the challenge it poses to how we define civilization itself. Traditionally, historians have used markers such as writing systems, monumental architecture, and centralized states to define whether a culture qualifies as a true civilization. The discovery of early American metal artifacts suggests that such definitions may be too narrow. Civilizations are not just about monuments and writing. They are about the ways in which human beings solve problems, adapt to their environment, and create cultural meaning. The mastery of metal in early America, even without the massive stone structures like the pyramids, demonstrates that these societies had their own paths to complexity, no less valid than those in Egypt or Mesopotamia. It compels us to broaden our definition of what it means to be civilized and to appreciate the diversity of human achievement. The historical importance of these discoveries also lies in their potential to reshape education and public understanding. Much of the way history is taught, particularly in the Western world, focuses heavily on the accomplishments of Europe and the Near East. The pyramids, for example, are often one of the first symbols of ancient history that children learn about in school. By contrast, the rich and ancient histories of the Americas are often introduced only later, and often through the lens of European colonization. Recognizing that metal artifacts older than the pyramids exist in America provides an opportunity to rewrite this imbalance. It allows us to present the Americas not as lands waiting to be discovered, but as places where civilizations were flourishing, innovating, and leaving their own legacies long before Europe even entered the picture. The broader cultural significance cannot be ignored either. For indigenous peoples of the Americas today, the discovery of ancient achievements like these is a powerful reminder of their heritage. It connects them directly to ancestors who were not only survivors of harsh environments, but creators of knowledge and bearers of sophisticated traditions. This recognition can strengthen cultural pride, counter centuries of narratives that dismissed indigenous accomplishments, and offer a more accurate understanding of their place in the world's history. It is not just about metal artifacts, it is about restoring dignity to the stories of peoples who have too often been written out of the global narrative. At the same time, these artifacts are historically significant because they raise new questions that historians and archaeologists must grapple with. If advanced metallurgy existed in America before the pyramids, what does that say about the timeline of human innovation? Was this knowledge developed independently, or is it possible that there were cultural connections across the oceans far earlier than we have imagined? Mainstream scholars remain cautious about the idea of early transoceanic contact, but discoveries like these ensure that such questions remain alive. Even if the skills developed independently, the very fact that they emerged in multiple parts of the world around the same time is a testament to the universality of human curiosity and problem solving. It reminds us that people everywhere, regardless of geography, shared the same drive to shape their world with their hands and minds. Finally, the significance of these discoveries extends into the present and future. Every new artifact unearthed, every piece of evidence analyzed, has the power to change how we see ourselves as a species. The story of humanity is not one of a single origin of brilliance spreading outward, but of many sparks of genius flaring across the globe. The metal artifacts of ancient America are part of that fire. They remind us that innovation is not the property of any one people or place, but the shared heritage of all humanity. They teach us to approach history with humility, recognizing that there is always more to learn, more to uncover, and more connections to be made. And in doing so, they help us build a more inclusive and truthful vision of the past, one that honors all the cultures that contributed to the making of our world. In this light, the historical significance of these artifacts is immense. They are not simply old objects dug out of the ground, they are voices from the past, telling us that the story of civilization is far richer, more diverse, and more interconnected than we have long believed. They challenge us to question old assumptions, to celebrate overlooked cultures, and to embrace a global view of human history. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that every society, no matter how distant in time or space, has something vital to teach us about the human journey. The discovery reminds us that every civilization, no matter how ancient or distant, holds wisdom and innovation that shaped human history. It teaches us to value and respect all cultures equally, for progress has always been a shared human journey.